folks, and welcome to another edition of the Pilot Review Show. I am Captain Blade J52, and I am joined this week by two of my merry, misfit, and insane cohorts. We have Fresh back with us after having dried his mobile emitter out and everything, Artie.
Hello.
Yeah, it took a little bit because last week somebody spilled something on the mobile emitter, and you know how that goes when electronics and water mix. And then we have up there doing some insane and crazy on the new Tribble test map is Timber.
Hey guys, so I've already broken it a few times. I've given him paperwork. He's not happy about it, and I don't care.
Jimmy crack corn, and I don't care. Jimmy crack corn, and I don't care.
Sounds like what I've been doing in the background. I'm just trying to test out things for this Tribble testing grounds, and yeah, we're not pressing the spawn button. There's a few things that he's going to have to write up, so just be mindful of that when he does his bug corner.
Yeah. Not that he cares about giving me paperwork or anything, or that he's intentionally trying to break it at this point. He would never do that.
I'm not paid to not break it, so I might as well.
And this is what I have to put up with, folks. This is what I put up with when we're not on camera. And even while we're on camera. But anyways, we do have a few little things to get through for you guys this week. We've got a bit more information on some of our patrols, as well as some new ones we're going to get into. But anyways, let's go ahead and dive into this. Now, we've been hearing a bit about this for a little while, is the new ways to do the patrols. And this is the blog where Jesse Heinig talks about it a little bit. They're coming out with a new type of patrol system, similar to the TFO system, where you can actually queue up for it, that sort of jazz. But it says patrols will give you skill points, dilithium ore, small number of marks upon completion, as well as extra skill points for defeating enemies to go towards Starship Mastery. So, from the way it's reading to me, maybe they're going to give us a little bit of extra to help level our ships a bit. Kind of similar to what a lot of people use Argala for now. But, anyways, before we actually do get into our new patrols, I'm just curious, what are your guys' thoughts on this so far?
Well, if it's like change up the patrols of like how they function and the reward system and all that, I'm all for it. There's a lot of cool patrols that I would feel like would do very well under a remastery, I guess, if that makes sense. A lot of the early ones near Earth and all that, those are a big few ones that definitely needed an update. But if they're just changing the whole system altogether, and they may scrap a few and may just change up the entire map, yeah, there's some that just are there from like season 2 that definitely need to be updated. So, yeah.
And what about you, Sir Timber? What's some of your early thoughts on this?
I mean, I like it, and I'm looking forward to it. It'd be a nice change of pace to have somewhere besides Argala and Japori to level up your ship. I'm just hoping that there's a little bit more to it, because the way they're describing it, they're supposed to be shorter than regular patrols, little blurps. So, you know, right now for most normal difficulty and advanced difficulty patrols, those are about a 2 to 3 minute thing. You know, we're dealing with combat. You can kind of just blow through that content pretty quickly. So if they're supposed to be shorter than your average regular patrol, you're looking at something that you could do in a minute. It just makes me curious on how much we'd be able to get, honestly, to level up a ship or for the endeavors, or anything that we're trying to do when it comes to this new, at least at first, for the new starship that we're going to be earning through them. It's got me kind of, concerned on what they've got going with it, because if they're basing it off of patrols now, those are mostly pretty quick.
Okay. So, cautiously optimistic, I guess we could say then.
Yeah.
Perhaps. But, anyways, just curious what some of you guys out there are thinking about this. Let us know in the comments what some of your guys' thoughts are. Maybe potential concerns that you guys might have as well. And maybe the devs will take some of those concerns to heart. But I know our next article mentions our events, but I actually want to just go ahead and address our new patrols right fast. So we have the Sentinels Patrol, Rescue and Search. Yeah, see what they did there. And within the Briars. So, I'm going to kind of address, starting with our Sentinels here. It's looks like we're trying to stop them from getting some of the spores in this potential one in the Donatu system. And then for our search and rescue, or rescue and search, I should say, dealing with some of this new stuff, looking like we're going to see Captain Kumarke again, standing up to House Mokai. And then within the Briars, it's looking like we're going to see a potential fight with House Mokai in the Briar Patch. So this is looking to be interesting. But you know, we're kind of addressing all of these at once. But yeah, what's some of your guys' thoughts on these potential patrols here?
I'm liking the new flavors.
Yeah, I'm actually quite enjoying. Like, I want to see more of what was with the Ju'ula stuff, because I didn't really much into that when Ju'ula was first mentioned and added into the story. It was just like, here's Ju'ula, boom, now you're all in the 25th century, and so is Ju'ula, and we won't follow that up yet.
Okay.
I'm actually happy that we're actually going to see a little bit more into that.
Alrighty. And you, Sir Timber, what are some of your thoughts on these 3 new patrols?
Like I said, I'm cautiously optimistic about it. I'm liking the idea of making patrols more than what they are, and everything really great. I am hoping there's more for the story, especially considering this is probably going to be the last big patch for Discovery content, more than likely anyway. So I'm hoping there's more for the story, because we've got Joula as an enemy. We also have Captain Killy, and I don't think you can really wrap that up in a mission and a couple of patrols. So I'm just hoping there's more there. But I'm really looking forward to what they're doing with these patrols and bringing more out, because if that's how we're, or as some of the help for new events, instead of just running one event every 20 hours, you can do one event every 20 hours, and then let's say all these patrols once an hour, and you can almost constantly do progression towards that event instead of having to wait. You can speed it up that way. That'd be great. Be actually really great.
Okay. I guess I can kind of see that. I know we've not, some of the locations, especially the Briar Patch, since some of the early KDF missions, we've not really seen anything going on in the Briar Patch or some of these areas.
Yeah.
So,
the last time we went to
I'd be glad to revisit those maps.
Last time we went to Briar Patch was Brushfire, and that was about it.
I guess it has been that long. But yeah, so a couple of times we visited here. It'd be nice to visit this map again. It is a rather interesting area of space that we don't really see a lot of in Trek. So I guess we'll see how that goes. But next up, we're going to take a look at our patch notes. Then we're going to talk about our event rewards article. I know I saved that for last, but because of the nature of the restructuring, I wanted to save that for last because I know probably all of us are going to have some thoughts on that. But anyways, so for our patch notes here, there's not really too much here as far as individual notes, but what we do have is actually fairly significant. We have the search filter for the store UI and powers menu, the updated abilities window to use different skinned versions of the powers. Then we also have our Warbird update, which enabled most of the Romulan warbirds to be used by other characters, and they're now not just strictly Romulan only. Like all of this kind of stuff, there are a few ships that are exempt from this. It actually gives us the list here of some of the ships that are still going to be Romulan only, which actually makes sense because there's still some ships that are Federation only, Klingon only, and that sort of thing. It resolved an issue where the 45-second lockout on the Temporal Insight Starship trait wasn't working correctly, and resolved an issue that caused the K-13 Advanced Fleet Plasma Beam Weapons and Lucari Reputation Set Weapons to use the incorrect visuals under beam overload. Now, I think that the Romulan change is the most significant one in this set of notes, but I'll save my thoughts for last here. But I want to hear from you guys. What's any thoughts you guys may have on this set of notes, as sparse as they may be?
Personally, I feel like this does change the dynamic of Romulan ships quite a bit. When the Romulan ships were first added in, there was a definite balance difference between it, because Romulan ships that didn't really fit into the categories of, where you have an escort, a side ship, cruiser, or in Klingon's case, raider, cruiser, so on and so forth. But they were more like a science cruiser for some of the later end ships. Some of them were just something built straight up like a escort. Some of them were just built up like a straight up early light cruiser, and that's it. So having that access to everyone now, you actually get the aspects of how the Romulan ship worked well, and now you can actually intermix it all back into the pot of everything instead of just having the Romulans. We get this special group of ships as well as everyone else's ships, and while the Federation or Klingons will just have to be dealing with what they have. Now we actually get a new version of what the Romulan ships will actually be.
Okay. What about you, Sir Timber? Any thoughts on this change?
You want honesty, right?
Yes, within reason.
This is a great thing for some and a bad idea for others. What I mean by that, in all honesty, the fact that Federation and Klingon captains can fly Romulan warbirds. I can see a lot of people being interested in that. It's going to give them access to consoles that they can't even get through cross-faction boxes. One of the ones I thought of off the top of my head was the Valdor console. That shield frequency console where you can heal your shields if you're above 90% hull, if I remember correctly. Don't quote me. But it's a console that, up until this moment, only a Romulan tune could have. So it does open up some consoles that are locked, that don't have a C-Store equivalent for the other factions. People can test them out now. But there is a section of the community that I've looked into and I can't say that they're wrong, I can see kind of their viewpoint, that have said that this is kind of the death nail in saying that the Romulans are their own faction. Because you're giving the Romulan warbirds to everybody. Just like the Jem'Hadar, the ships go to everybody. So really they're kind of, the argument has been, why create a Romulan tune when you can create a Fed tune and have a Romulan warbird? It just goes back to some of the things over the past few years where Romulans really haven't gotten that many options by comparison to KDF and Fed. So I can see where they're coming from that. You know, why honestly build a Romulan tune when you could just do a KDF or a Fed? Because when you create a Romulan tune, you have to pick one of those two factions either way. So you're not a pure Romulan to begin with. Now it's, why create one at all? We can just get the warbirds and fly them on a Fed tune. So I like the idea. It opens up a lot of possibilities for builds for Fed and KDF players. If they're wanting to do something with Romulan consoles they could never touch before, things of that nature. And this could also, since everybody can fly a warbird, maybe that they can overhaul singularity cores, because the power levels on warbirds are really one of the big things that hold them back by comparison to other ships for the most part. But I can't see Romulan players being happy about this, considering there is a lockout for what ships they can fly kind of deal. If that makes sense. It's just, I see the pros and cons. It's about the best way I can say it.
Now that you mention it, now I can see that, because if we had Romulan faction set up as its own faction, that means not picking either side or whatever, being a standalone thing, it's considerably lacking in ships that do that. Now, having basically just write off the Romulans where you could just have Fed or Klingon again, and it's just being those two factions again. Does that mean that you can just basically just make an alien in either faction and just run a Romulan at that point, while still being Fed or Klingon, instead of just making a proper Romulan?
I mean, that's kind of where I was going with it, is with the way you can customize your characters, you could technically make a Romulan of sorts. You might not have the official uniforms, I don't know, but you could more or less make a Romulan of sorts in the Alien Creator, and bam, there you go. You're a Fed tune, and you got a quote-unquote Romulan. That's where, to me, it just kind of gets a little gray area, a little foggy on why you would create a specific Romulan tune. But I'm also hoping that there is a revamp, the rumored revamp there, that is, of the Romulan arc, and they're doing a lot more stuff for Romulan soon, because the water is starting to get muddied for them, where it's very hard to find a reason why you'd want to create one. There's a reason behind creating Jem'Hadars, because you're starting off at level 50. It's kind of or 60. It's kind of the Death Knight when you're comparing it to WoW. It's the Death Knight. It's a little bit more advanced because you get to start off a lot later in levels, and you're given a T5U starship that's already geared out with decent gear. Mark 12 very rare gear to be exact. So you're actually getting a good bonus there. There's a reason to create that tune. You get some nice things created there. Whereas Romulans, it just seems like they've been whittled away at over time, and it's, at this point, I can see myself creating a Fed, I can see myself creating KDF, and I have a good reason to create a Jem'Hadar. I'm not seeing a reason at all to do a Romulan now. So one of the choices is kind of out, just eh.
And I do actually see in chat one of our folks in chat actually bringing up a couple of good points. that as far as to why people might still want to make Romulans is in part because of the bridge officers. That is Atticus. Sorry if I butcher your name, dude. I'm just going to throw that out there. But Atticus 826 saying they're not going to be truly equal to Romulans, and Romulan bridge officers is part of why people are going to want to make Romulans over Feds or KDF. So that is a potential still selling point for Romulans. I will say I agree with that. But,
Oh, hey, BPEG.
Oh,
How's it
BPEG. Okay.
Well, BPEG, I will say this. If that's one of the only things that makes them stand apart, it kind of proves my point that they really don't have a whole lot of footing anymore.
Yeah, that outweighs the cons there.
I mean, if that's their biggest selling point,
Maybe.
I mean, I'm just saying, like, it's been weakened at this point. They need more. It's just like plasma. Plasma's a good energy type for space. But is it anywhere close to the level of phasers, disruptors, or polarons right now? Hell no. Absolutely not. It needs a revamp. Plasma needs more. The same as with Romulans. You just took away something that was very unique to them with these warbirds and some of these consoles and everything. Something that's very unique about them. And that's been taken away its uniqueness. They need something. They need their singularity power boosted. They need something that is going to enhance their power levels, because comparative to other starships, warbird power levels suck. The characters need something. They need something to make them feel like, okay, there are a significant amount of benefits to creating one versus, well, I can get this one type of bridge officer and I can get the disrupting photon torpedo from a mission. Oh crap, I've run out of stuff to say. Kind of deal. It's just, if they want people to make stuff, they need to give them more. And I'm hoping that's what they do. Like, if you're going to unlock all the Romulan ships for Fed and KDF, hell, unlock all of the... make it where a Romulan... I don't know if they can right now, but make sure they can fly a Vengeance. Romulan flying a Vengeance. Romulan flying the NX escort retrofit. You know, give them some of these very powerful starships we've had for a while. Like, have that parity. Because at this point, it seems only right.
I think that's some of the ships that were actually on the restricted list. But I do have to say, for me, as far as that goes, I can kind of see both sides of it. And J-Dog actually does raise a good question in the chat. Will Feds and KDF be able to buy the ship directly, or will it have to be claimed by a Romulan? That is one, dude, that I don't think they've answered yet. If they have, I'm sure somebody will. Have they answered that yet?
You have to have a Romulan that... I think you have to just have a Romulan that has been through the tutorial, and then you can start buying the warbirds. But you at least have to create a Romulan through the tutorial, if I remember correctly. And there's been some argument in the community that should be raised to at least level 50 or 60. That way you have to actually play a Romulan and level them up before you have the whole cross-faction unlock.
And you can't just
cheese it. So that's... I think it's just a tutorial, and that's the only restriction for creating a Romulan toon. Then you get all the warbirds. I could be a little off on that, but I also do kind of agree that it should be like levels. You have to level a Romulan up to level 60 before you start having that cross faction. Just because once you get to level 60, you'll know with all that work, do I really want to keep going with this because I've learned the play style kind of deal, instead of, well, I'm just doing a Romulan death camp. Create a toon, get it through the tutorial, get the unlock, delete the toon. There's actually an investment.
If we're spitballing here, that does make sense. I would put it, I guess, technically on par with the Dominion characters, because since they start at 50, You think that you would have to now have the Romulan characters you have to build up to 50 to do the cross-faction bit.
Yeah.
And hey, what's happening, Palo?
And quite honestly, I'm gonna go one.
I suck with names.
I'm gonna go one further
so,
than that, Artie.
My apologies.
To make Romulans worth it, okay, you want them to just get through the tutorial. Recode Romulans to be the same as Jim Haddard.
Start at 50?
Start at 50 or 60. That way they're a quote-unquote advanced player tune. So when you come out on your first mission, you're not level 4. You're coming out as level 60. You've got a T5U Warbird that's geared out with Mark 12 plasma weaponry and a decent set, consoles, the whole 9 yards, so that you can see exactly from the moment you get in what a Warbird can do. Put them in a T5U Dideridex or a T5U Valdor refit, something fully decked out. That way your basic starter characters are your Fed and your KAF, and then your quote-unquote Death Knights of Star Trek Online will be your Romulan and your Jim Haddard. And that would give you a nice, extra starting point. Well, I've already figured out the basics. Let me figure out singularity cores kind of deal. That's how I would do it.
That makes sense.
Okay. So, I do have to say, as far as the Romulans go, like I say, it's something that, I can see both sides of it. I can see why both sides are concerned about it. Some people thinking, well, this is going to be an excuse for them to not do Romulan ships in the future, Romulan variants. Why do that when they can just make a KDF variant and a Fed variant and just let the Romulans fly that? I could see that side too. So I think there's valid concerns until we see more about what's going on. And maybe this will lead into that revamp that we've been hearing about for a while. Or a potential revamp that's maybe coming down the line. It could lead to that, for all we know. But the one thing I did kind of want to touch base on, as far as the bridge officers being mentioned as a potential selling point for the Romulans at that juncture, something that I do want to actually raise as a potential, I'm not sure rebuttal's the correct word to use, but it's the only one that I can think of off the top of my head, is a potential answer or rebuttal to that is, okay, if you've got the Romulan bridge officer, sure, that is, I will agree, that is a decent selling point for it. I don't know that that's a valid enough reason for everybody to want to make a Romulan tune still. It's a reason, certainly, but I don't know if it's going to be enough. Now, the thing that I was going to raise in rebuttal to that is, with what we have now, assuming you're in a decently developed fleet, doesn't have to be the highest level fleet ever, but a decent level fleet and such, you've got 2 Romulans that you could pick up there that will give you access to the superior Romulan operative from the embassy. Then, if you have the Jim Haddard buffs, the Vanguards, you pick up the 3 Vanguards, you pick up your 2 from the embassy, you essentially have a full set of buffs that are equivalent to the superior Romulan operatives there. Now, the Vanguards, yes, they are a slightly lesser version, but they're still very comparable. So the argument could also be made, why would I level a Romulan when I could just pick up 2 Romulans from the embassy and then go with the Vanguards on the ship, and then boom, I have a full crew? Or especially with a lot of fleets even leveling their colonies up now, you could pick up the Kintari bridge officers. So, while I do agree that is a selling point, I don't know that it's going to be as effective of a selling point, if you catch my drift on that one.
Well, that's why I said that. Like, Romulans need, if they're going to give Warbirds to everybody, make them a hero class like Jim Haddard, and give them better boosts to something. Give them something as a flare to unique. I feel it's definitely needed.
And I guess I can agree with that. But like I say, we could probably banter on this for a while. But I do think there's good ideas thrown around by everybody here in the chat and from our banters here. Something we'll probably discuss off camera a little bit more as well. But getting into our final article of the evening before we move into the budget builds, or the budget build and into our RP corner and stuff, we have the Get Event Rewards Quicker. Now this is the revamp that they've been talking a little bit about it. This is the article written up by Joanna. She's one of the UI artists, and we've started to kind of see bits of this being put in place to where they're going to redo it, and what's the word I'm looking for here that they're trying to use? It's not going to be as I hesitate to say intensive, but essentially they're going to be reworking the UI and that sort of thing. So now it's a bit more automated. They're taking the events reputation out of that particular part of the journal, making its own area, I guess they had said. But anyways, I'm kind of curious as to what's some of you guys' thoughts about everything so far.
No, you're not.
What is it?
You're not curious about my thoughts.
Oh Lord, here we go.
Does that mean I should go short and sweet and then you monologue for a little bit?
Yeah.
Okay. Alright, so I'm actually okay with them reworking the events tab because there's been plenty of times that that real life gets a hold of me and I'm not able to get in every day to do the summer event, get a Rise the ship or whatever, or do the winter event, get a Breen ship. And sometimes I'm able to get in like maybe half of the needed marks and whatnot, and sometimes I'm not even able to get one daily for it because I'm just so busy. So it just sucks for me, and I'm pretty sure plenty of other people. So if they're reworking it, make it either somehow easier to get it or another way of getting the marks besides just pay to win. I'm curious of what they're going to do. There's a lot of openness there, so I'm willing to ride out this wave if they have anything planned out for it. So I'm good.
Alrighty, I'll save my thoughts for last as always, because I'm one that I could see some potential benefits to it. I can also see some pretty big downsides to this. So, because I'm going to have to kind of clarify a little bit, I'm going to let Timber go first and get some of his thoughts out there.
Okay. So, while I'm interested in this idea, I have to say I'm not looking forward to something that they might be planning with this, because the last time they streamlined when it came to our events, we ended up losing a lot of marks that we saved up over time. You know, your crystalline shards and your multi-dimensional transporters and everything. Because the average player that was able to do these every day and save up, they'd always have leftover marks, and people tried to save those up not to try to cheese the system. It was pretty much because they knew, yes, I could catch this event this time. But if I've got enough marks, I don't know if I'll be able to catch the next event to its fullest potential next time. Or there's the rare occasion, wow, the next event sucks. I am glad that I was able to save up a lot of these marks where I can skip most of it, and I can still get the piece of gear. But for the most part, it was, you can catch some peck this time, and next time it's like, well, crap, I've got to work most of that time, or I'm going out of town, I won't be able to finish this, I'll miss it on the reward, oh wait, no I won't, I saved up 7 marks from the last event, I just gotta do 7 days of this and I'm fine. And they took all those away. There was no, as far as like trade-in, which to me, that was something I always thought needed to be there, was just a trade-in. Could have been for piddly amount of marks per, hand-in kind of deal. To me, this screams that that's what they're going to do again. When they just converted everything to a singular mark, it screams, well, we're just going to get rid of the marks. And, I've already seen that Bordicus is saying, don't get rid of your TFO marks. We have plans and all that. So don't throw them away. It'll get announced here in the next week or two what's going to happen with those marks and all that. But for me, if they get rid of using marks and it's just an autofill, it is easier for the players. But let's say you can't make an event. You can't past the 14 days to finish the event, or whatever. What's the point of continuing to go past the 14 days? The event kind of dies, because everybody's going to do it the first 14 days, and then it's over, for starters. That's typically how... It's typically how I want to say the Universal Endeavors go. If you see the Universal Endeavor, the moment it launches, it is Undine Assault. Or let's say it's Plague Gravity Kills, because it has been once. You're warping in when it first launches. Towards the end of that Universal Endeavor, when you've only got maybe 8 hours left or 6 hours left, everybody that's going to do it has done it. And you will be lucky as hell if you can get a Gravity Kills to pop for the Endeavor, because everybody does it as early as possible to get it out of the way. If they're doing an autofill system, which is kind of what I think they're trying to do, everybody's going to just try and get it done out of the way as quickly as possible so they can move right back into other things. If you come in late to the event, you're going to have a much tougher time finishing it. That's why I wish they would just at least leave the mark system where you collect the marks past the 14. That way you can still... if you, let's say, after this next event in September, you've got Kobayashi Maru. If you're going to miss half of Kobayashi Maru and not finish it, you'll have some marks left over from the September TFO to shore that up so you can finish it. Or let's say you hate Kobayashi Maru. I want to skip that. I don't want to play through that. So let me use all the marks I saved up in September. I can skip half of that and be done with it. And then, well, I don't have to play it at all because the 7 marks I saved up, I put them in as an autofill, and then I can get the bundle that they sell with every event, that little 800 Zen, for the 10 marks plus the Ultimate Tech Upgrade. I'll get that real quick. Now it's full. I don't have to do the event. I've got 2 or 3 tokens left over, and these can go to the next event to help me out. Some people do play that way because some of the events just piss them off. And I know one, for an example, before it got taken out, Mirror Invasion. People hated doing that one because it became an AFK frenzy. You would warp in, and unless you really wanted to be active, it was 25 minutes of 5 people AFKing for, 20 minutes? Just AFK through the whole thing. You got your rewards at the end, and then you warped out. No AFK penalty. You could jump right back into it, and the 30 minutes was up. It was just, that was it. So people stopped playing it because it was just like, I'm just going to warp in, and then I'm going to go take a shower and grab a burger and everything. When I come back, the event, my daily is over with, and I didn't have to do a thing. I just don't want to even have to deal with that when I could be doing something else. So I like the idea. I just really have to see what they're doing with it, and I am really hoping they're not going to once again delete marks that people have been trying to save up for whatever their reasoning is, or if they're going to give you a substantial buyout to get rid of those marks. That's all I'm really wanting to see, is how they're going to do this, because this could end up where I'm seeing their thinking is they want nobody get the item on the first day. They want to level the playing field so that the only way to get ahead is to buy the Zen pack from the C-store. That puts you 10 days ahead. You still have to play the content for 4 days, but no one will ever have the item on day one. You have to do some kind of investment into the content. I can kind of see that might be one viewpoint they're trying to go after. I try not to rant too much, so I do apologize, ladies and gentlemen, I do. But it's just, sometimes I worry. And most of the time it's not for, it ends up becoming a nothing burger. But I do like the option if I'm going to be on vacation and I can't take my laptop with me, I can't do an event, or whatever the case may be, if I've got marks saved from the last event, I can put them into that one, to the current one, and I'm fine. And that's not lying, Snake. I really don't. Well, I try to keep my stuff positive. I hate ranting. It's just that sometimes we
wouldn't rant if we didn't care, I don't think.
I just don't do it often. I'm really not fond of it. It's just sometimes I get really concerned with some of the things that they do. Most of the time it ends up just fine, or better than what I thought. It's just concerning. And in a couple of weeks, we'll know whether my concern was needed, or if I was just blowing it way out of proportion and I'm having fun day one. So.
And then, to get to J-Dog's question, this is, I know you guys have heard a little bit more about this than I have, because I actually missed the stream where they talked about this. Says, would you be able to do events on multiple tunes like in the past, or is it restricted to one tune? Basically, in a nutshell, I think what he's asking is, now as it sits with the current system, I could do it on my main tune and then say one of my alts, and I get the reward regardless, because I'm doing it on my main tune. But my main tune would get 50k dilithium ore. The second tune would also get similar rewards. Would they still be able to do that? Or have they said that either of you have heard?
I don't remember hearing anything about that. But honestly, J-Dog, with the current trend they've been doing, is they're trying to do a lot of account-wide stuff. A lot of it. I mean, personal endeavors are the perfect example. You do it on one tune, the reward goes to everything. For everything that you do. I mean, my budget builds are enhanced greatly because of all these personal endeavor boosts. So while I haven't heard anything about it, I could see them doing this as you do it, regardless of your progression on whichever tune, it's a one-time reward. So instead of getting 50k per tune, it's just 50k once. To avoid all of that massive dilithium that you're collecting, that you can then refine, and this could be their way of limiting how much Zen, and I use that as loosely as possible because I'm not trying to imply anything, but that much dilithium could turn into a lot of Zen, or Zen purchases.
I guess.
So this could be one of their ways of controlling that market to some degree, maybe bringing it more in line with what they're wanting to see? Question mark? So that's another wait and see, because I really don't think they have put full details on that, but that's the way it would look. Is you claim it once, the reward of course is a count unlock for ship weaponry or whatever the hell it is. But I honestly think they'll probably just do 50k that you can claim on one tune, and then that's it.
Now, I see something from Snake in there saying it looks like they're going to do just a one tune. Now, if you don't mind me asking, Snake, did you actually hear him say that on stream, or is that just something that you're speculating and whatnot? And like I say, the only reason I'm asking is because I missed the stream, so I wasn't there to actually hear it. I don't think these guys did either, so if that's something they've actually said, then I'm just kind of curious. So it may have come from one of them, but
I think that answers your question, J-Dog. I don't think the massive stream of dilithium over multiple tunes is going to be around for too much longer.
Okay. That's, and much appreciated, by the way, Snake, for kind of keeping us on our toes and whatnot with that. Now, I know some of my thoughts. I've got some good thoughts and I've got some bad thoughts about it. And I'll get those out of the way really quickly, then we'll move on to our budget build and our RP corner and stuff. Now, this is one of those things that I have to say for me, and I can see some good coming from it, but I can also see potentially a lot of downsides to it at the same time. The biggest thing that I would have to say is it makes sense to me that they combined a lot of the events into one specific currency. That actually made sense. That way you're not having to worry about, you know, do I have enough crystal shards? Do I have enough multi-dimensional transporters? Do I have this currency or that currency? And it made things easier in that department. So that kind of makes sense as to why they unified it. So that one, okay, I can somewhat give them a pass on that because it did make it easier for people to get the marks. You know, if you've got, especially say whenever they unified it, they converted it over, some of it they just auto-completed, and even then, if all you had to do was slap in a few extra marks, okay, fine, that helped people out in that aspect, so kind of makes sense. Now, the big thing I would have to ask, and I do this respectfully, because it's one thing that really does concern me to some extent. After nearly 10 years of this game, where we've been able to stockpile marks, where we've been able to save up extra marks and maybe get an item on day one, or we've only had to run it a couple of days to get whatever reward we're after, whether it be, like, say, the crystalline torpedo a few years back, or maybe the prolonged phasers, or whatever it is the reward was. Why after 10 years, almost, is all of a sudden this supposedly some kind of an issue? Why after 10 years is this change suddenly being made? That's one question that I legitimately have. And I don't mean that to be in any way a swipe against the devs or anything like that at all. By no means is that what I'm trying to do. It's just, for me personally, I tend to subscribe to the philosophy of, if it's not broke, why try to fix it? And that sort of jazz. And that to me is one of those things of, if it's not broke, why try to fix it? So there are some advantages to the system as it is now, like Timberwolf, he touched on quite a few of them. If, you know, life happens, something goes on, you're not able to make the event. You're just not able to do it. Due to, it could be something with business, could be something with family, just real life drags you a different direction and you're not able to be on as much as you would like. You could save up some tokens, and maybe with that little progress thing, you could you could get enough of the tokens to complete it, or you could skip an event that you don't like, that sort of thing. Which I do think, to some extent, maybe that has something to do with it. They want to try to get people to play some of the other events, like Kobayashi Maru's a prime example. I do think, to some extent, that could be part of it, which I get why they want people to play the events. They don't want people to skip stuff. I totally get that from their point of view. They don't want people to skip events because that doesn't look good. The other thing I would say to that, too, is they do need to kind of be careful with some of this kind of stuff. That it doesn't come off as them trying to force people to do something or to play something they have no interest in playing. It's kind of like World of Warcraft with this latest expansion. I know we talk about WoW a lot here on the show and everything, but it's a well-known game. I know I've played it quite a bit. Timber's played it quite a bit. I think Artie's touched it a little bit as far as that goes. So it's a relatable example that we pull on quite a bit. With this latest expansion, they had basically created a system where while you're questing, if you would turn on PvP and flag yourself to where you could be attacked at any time, aka World PvP, you would get a 20% increase on your XP rewarded from quest. So basically they were trying to pigeonhole, in my opinion, people into playing a way that they have no intention of playing. So basically it came off, at least to me, as turn on PvP or participate in PvP or eat this 20% nerf. And a lot of people chose to eat the nerf just because they have no interest in that style of play. They have no interest in being involved with something like that. And I don't want this change to come off as something like that. And I'm not going to say that it's going to come off like that just yet. I'm going to say it has the potential to do it like that if, depending on how they set this up, depending on how it goes. It may come off as a thing of, you're going to do this event, and you're going to like it, or you're not going to get the reward. And the thing I worry about is a lot of players saying, well, okay, we're just not going to do the event, and you guys can go walk out the airlock or something like that. I don't want something like that to happen.
Well, I mean, technically, Blade, not to interrupt you, it already has a couple of times. To be honest. Mirror Universe phaser dual pistols. The most recent one, the Section 31 rifle that came out, still has some issues. And there's been a few times where, and it's I don't want to say it's all from what has been reported on, but the reward hasn't been that great, and then when it's reviewed by content creators, it's just like they show off its strengths, but then because they're showing it off, it shows off their weaknesses, and people are like, well, it didn't look great to begin with. Now I see that I was right. I'm not going to play it. It's happened.
And that is a fair criticism. Some people, they don't like the reward. The big thing I was saying is I don't want the system to come off as feeling more like a penalty than anything, if that makes sense. That's essentially where I'm going with that sort of stuff. And that's kind of what the thing in WoW did with the PvP thing. It felt like they were basically punishing people for not playing PvP. That's honestly what it felt like. And I don't want that to happen here with this system. Now, I do see some bits of good potentially coming from this. Because if somebody, they're doing the event, that sort of jazz, there have been some people that have forgot to queue up the project. And because of an honest mistake, they miss it. Now, likewise, some people could say, well, that's their own fault, which is factually correct. Let's be real here. But at the same time, it sucks when that happens, and they want to make sure that as many people as possible get the event. And I get why Cryptic wants people to play the events. They don't want people, or they may not want people to skip the events. I get that. But as far as some of the good, you could say this is going to make it easier. It's not taking up inventory, that sort of thing. Another thing, as far as some of the good, although it does suck if it's going to be limited to just the one tune as far as the dill reward. I can also see that as potentially removing a bit of supply from the dill exchange in the economy. A lot of people have been complaining that dilithium has been running really high lately, and it has been running really high lately as far as that kind of stuff. And when dilithium gets really high, that takes a lot of purchasing power away from the free-to-play folks. And with a game like Stowe, you want the dill exchange to be in somewhat of that butter zone. You want it to be in a place where people that are selling their Zen feel like they're getting a fair amount of dilithium for it. That way they're motivated to continue selling their Zen that they're purchasing. And you also want it low enough so that the free-to-play folks feel like they're actually able to make progress and they're actually still able to be part of the game without having to, also sell an arm and a leg and, sacrifice a goat, including the blood of a virgin and all this other kind of crazy stuff. And some people may agree with me on this, some people may disagree. But to me, that butter zone for dilithium is between 225 to 325. As long as it's somewhere about in there, you get a fair amount of dilithium when you sell it. You also get a fair amount of dilithium and everything. So it's kind of, like I say, it's in that Goldilocks zone, I guess, to me. So you need a balance of people that are willing to sell Zen. You need a bit of people that are willing to generate dill as well. So it's kind of like Star Wars, I guess. Is you don't want the Force to be out of balance, if that makes sense. Everything. So, I could see this as potentially pulling some of that supply out of there. If the supply is too high, that's going to inflate the dilithium prices. If there's not enough, likewise, that could also inflate it. So again, you want enough to be there to kind of control it. And people have said we needed to remove some dilithium from the game for a while. While I don't think this is what those people meant, this can have that effect. So it's one of those things that I think the best way I can sum it up is it has the potential to be either really well and be a really good thing if they do it right, or a really bad thing. So I don't see this as being middle ground. It's either going to go really well or it's going to go really badly. And I hope it goes really well. But I digress. I guess we'll see on that. So there is some potential good. There's also some potential bad that can come from this as well. But anyways, that's our articles for this evening. I know we kind of ranted on some of this stuff, and we don't usually do that a lot here on the show, but like I said, I'm of the opinion that if we didn't rant occasionally, it would show that we didn't really care that much. But, anyways, coming into our budget build for the evening, this is, since we're not too far off from the recent Phoenix promo, we decided to go with a little something here, which is our Voth Bulwark. If you're somebody that was lucky enough to get a ultra rare token that will net you one of the T5 ships, then this is one of the options that you have that you can pick up. And especially since some of the Voth ships have been redone recently, there's the Bastion was redone, which was the old lockbox variant, and then there was, I can't remember I think it was the Palisade, wasn't that the name of it? Was the Science Voth?
Yes.
But, yeah, so they redid the Bastion and the Palisade, and then if they're going to be continuing redoing Voth ships, then this one is due for a revamp pretty soon as well. So, with that in mind, we did want to, at least I wanted to go ahead and, I guess, slap something together for you guys. Now, I decided to take this down the tanking route because it's an often overlooked ship in my opinion, which is a shame because it actually has a lot of potential, and was one of the ships that there for the longest time, unless you got it initially way back when the initial DOF promo was. This was something that very few people had, and now a lot more people are getting to experience this ship, getting to take it out for a test drive and actually complete that 3-piece set, if that's something you're interested in for your Voth vessels. Now, Polaron is actually in a very good place, budget-wise at the moment, so we decided to go ahead and use that for our weapons. Now, for this particular ship, this is a 4-4 layout for weapons in the front, 4 in the back. Up front, we have our chronometric Polaron beam array, our morphogenic torpedo, a Dominion Polaron beam, and our advanced piezo beam. And this is going to give some interesting drain effects, as well as a bit of healing thanks to the piezo beam. Then in the rear of the ship, we have 2 more of our Dominion Polarons, which are our hybrid beams that carry the Tetrion and Polaron procs. Then we have our chronometric turret and or morphogenic energy weapon that can function as a turret or as an Omni, depending on what firing mode is activated first. Now, we are using the chronometric turret in this instance because you can't actually have 2 Omni beams on, well, of this particular type. You can't have 2 Omni beams on the same ship. The chronometric energy weapon, or the morphogenic energy weapon, and the chronometric oh, Lordy, had to mute my mic to sneeze for a minute. Hopefully you folks didn't hear that. Whew, excuse me. Allergies are a pain this time of year. But anyway, before I was rudely interrupted by allergens and dust and junk, what I was saying is the morphogenic energy weapon and the chronometric Omni beam actually share a lockout. You can't have both of them on the same ship. That does kind of suck when that goes. And yes, Steve, I did that purely to annoy the living daylights out of you because I thought it would be funny. And more so because there's a lot of the a lot of the anti-proton consoles are a bit pricier to get, and they're not that budget friendly at the moment. But so that's the only thing I did want to mention energy weapon wise. So you can in fact get the 3-piece chronometric and 3-piece morphogenic on the vessel, but you're just going to have to use the morphogenic, or not morphogenic, but the chronometric turret in order to do it. Then for your shields, your engines, your deflector and warp core, we did go with the Soul Defense set on this. The reason being is for the set bonuses of the Soul Defense. The 2-piece gives you the free equivalent of a neutronium alloy armor worth of resistances without actually having to slot a neutronium armor. So this potentially frees up a console slot that you can use for other items. Now, the set does not come with a warp core, so we have to source one. In this instance, we went with our temporal phase core, which is going to give us a nice little effect on the capacitor, which is our temporal negotiator style thing. It cuts our bridge officer cooldowns in half for the duration it's active. Now you do get 4 device slots on the ship. We typically like to think of those as personal preference. Then for our devices, 2 of them that we do like to recommend are the subspace field modulator, which gives about a neutronium worth of resistances for free, and also 15% defense while it's active, or 15% defense rating. Now, it does debuff you for a minus 400 protonic damage resist rating, which does kind of suck. There's not too many enemies that use protonic damage in the game, but it is worthy of making a mention. Then we also have our energy amplifiers to increase our energy weapon damage. It's a 20% Cat 2 bonus for the duration it's active. Then you also have other options, such as your deuterium surplus. You've got Gemini hardpoints, ablative hull plating. There's quite a few batteries and devices that you can use. Then, for this particular version of the ship, since it's upgraded to T5U, which you will be able to do for free once you get the ship off of your Phoenix token, you're looking at 5 engineering, 3 science, and 3 tactical as far as the layout goes. For our engineering consoles, we have our Trillium deplating, which is going to give a nice defensive value in terms of resistances, as well as buffing our shield capacity by a fair amount. We have our reinforced armaments, which is going to basically function as a free EPS console in this instance. We have our conductive RCS, which is going to give more turn rate to the ship, as well as the nice conductive effect. We have our sustained radiant field, which is going to give a slight bit of damage boosting, but also some category 2 healing. So whenever it says bonus healing, that is a category 2 heal, and it actually means a straight 20% or 15%, or whichever variant you're going to have. For our final engineering console, we have the Ward Repair Ship that actually comes with our Voth Bulwark, and basically what this does is, if you would die, quote-unquote, you can actually pop this, and it will poof up a little Voth Repair Ship, similar to the ones you see in various queues where the Voth make an appearance. This will repair your ship, as well as giving nice boost to your power for the duration that it's active. Then for your science consoles, we have the Temporal Disentanglement Suite. This is going to give some shield capacity boosting, as well as critical chance and critical severity boosting based on your Ox power, as well as a bit of shield resistance, making your shields harder to take down. Then we have our Piezoelectric Focuser, which is going to, in this case, give us a nice chunk of Polaron damage, a bit of shield boosting. I believe this also gave a bit of RCS type effect as well. And then we have our Assimilated Module, which is going to give us a nice bit of critical chance and severity, as well as a tiny bit of control expertise. For our tactical consoles, we have our Morphogenic Matrix Controller, which is going to give some nice buffs to our Polarons. Then we also have our Chronometric Capacitor, which is also going to buff our Polaron, and these two are going to round out our sets. Finally, we have the Directed Energy Distribution Manifold. This is just a General Plus Beam console, since currently at the time of filming this, there is not a dedicated Polaron tactical console that we can get on the budget end. But finally, for our hangar bay, I left this blank because I don't like assuming what pets people are going to want to use, and I don't like assuming what access people are going to have to certain pets. So your pets in this instance would be personal preference. As far as our set bonuses for our Morphogenic, I'll go ahead and pull this up. And for our Piezo set, and I was correct, it did give a bit of flight. Let's see. There we go. So for our advanced Piezo set, we're going to have 2 of the items on this, which is basically going to give us a Plasma Polaron and Photon Projectile Damage boost, as well as buffing our Drain expertise very slightly. Then for our Morphogenic set, what makes it so potent is the 2-piece and 3-piece bonuses. The 2-piece bonus is going to be a straight 15% recharge time reduction to all of our major tactical firing modes, and this is going to stack with anything else that we might have. Then for our 3-piece, we have a stacking boost that can stack up to 3 times. Depending on what firing mode we activate, depends on what we get. If we activate Fall or Beam Overload, we get 2% critical chance up to a maximum of 6%. If we activate Scatter Volley or Rapid Fire, we get 10% critical severity up to a maximum of 30. If we activate one of the Torpedo or Mine Dispersal patterns, we get 7.5% Category 1 weapon damage up to 22.5%. And that's what we're going to get for our set bonuses on that. Now, our chronometric set, essentially, the 3-piece is the one you're going to want to worry about in that instance. That's going to give you a nice chunk of exotic damage boosting, as well as Category 1 energy damage in that case. And it's about 30%, I believe, is what it is in space. So, pretty decent bonus. Then, for our skill tree layout, this is pretty much our standard layout we use here on the show. Now, I'm not going to go into great details as to why we picked the certain points that we picked. If you guys are curious about that, as to why we made the skill point investments that we did, there's actually a video up on our channel you guys can check out, and where we go into a bit more detailed explanation. For those folks that just want to copy a skill point distribution and roll with it, here's our lieutenant tier and lieutenant commander. We have our commander levels, captain, and of course our admiral. Then for our specializations, we went with Intel Primary and Miracle Worker Secondary. This is going to give some nice offensive value to the ship, as well as some healing potential. Another alternative to Miracle Worker would be Strategist if you wanted the AoE taunt effect. So there are some options that you definitely have here as far as to what you could use. Then going to our traits. Give that a second. Now for our traits in this instance, we have the point blank shot, which is going to be a Category 2 energy weapon damage bonus the closer we are to the target, up to a certain maximum. Nanite Repair Matrix for a free heal whenever our ship drops below a certain health. Redirected Armor Plating, which is going to give us an all damage resistance when struck from behind or the sides. Beam Training for free beam damage. Beam Barrage is our R&D crafting trait. I always like to assume you've leveled at least one R&D crafting school, and we're assuming in this instance you have chosen beams. Then we have Elusive for free defensive value to the ship, making you harder to hit. Fleet Coordinator for free damage based on how many people are in your party, 2% minimum, up to a 10% maximum. Then we have Grace Under Fire, which is the career-specific trait for engineers. If you are not an engineer, but you are still interested in using this build, swap in your own career-specific traits, such as something like Last-Ditch Effort, or Photonic Capacitor if you're a science officer, and you're pretty well good to go. Then finally, to get just a little bit more out of our energy weapon, since it does double dip into projectile bonuses, we also have the projectile training. For our starship traits, this is one where we were able to use 4 traits. We have our best defense, which grants a whole healing effect along with the normal effects of our attack patterns. We have our improved predictive algorithms, which grants an accuracy buff as well as some other nice benefits. Going the extra mile from our Miracle Worker, whenever we heal someone above 90%, they gain additional maximum hull capacity. And then if you're on the Fed side, you could pick up the Honored Dead for fairly cheap, which is going to give some nice defensive value as well. And it's going to be worth about 10% across the board resistance. For space reputations, we have the Advanced Targeting Systems for free critical severity, Precision for free critical hit chance, Energy Refrequencer for a bit of healing based on our outgoing energy damage, and then Magnified Firepower for a straight-up Category 2 static damage boost. For our active reputations, we have our Anti-Time Entanglement Singularity, which is a nice little AoE physical damage and slow effect. We have our Biomolecular Shield Generator, which is going to heal our shields a bit, as well as reducing damage that they take while inside the little bubble. Deploy Sensor Interference Platform as a "oh crap, I'm going to die" type of button. This will poof up a little sensor interference platform that will taunt enemies to itself until it explodes or until the duration runs out, whatever happens first. Then finally we have our Quantum Singularity Manipulation. which is going to drastically increase our science stats for the time it's active, as well as granting a temporary cloaking effect. To get a bit more bang for your buck out of some of these powers, drop your exotic buffs first, follow with Quantum Singularity, then drop your anti-time on foes, and you will get a lot more bang for your buck that way. Then for our starship, we have a Lieutenant Commander Universal, an Ensign Universal seat, Lieutenant Tactical, Commander Engineering, and Lieutenant Science for our setup. Now, for our Commander Engineering, we went with an engineering team to heal the hull a bit. This is going to purge debuffs such as Viral Matrix. Then we have our Emergency to Engines, which is a get the heck out of dodge button. Then we have our Emergency Power to Weapons 3, which is going to buff our weapons power as well as our damage from our weapons for a time. And that is a Cat 2 bonus, by the way. Then we also have our Reverse Shield Polarity 3, which is going to let us recharge our shields in a pinch based off of incoming damage. For our Lieutenant Science, we have our Science team to recharge our shields and purge science debuffs such as subnucleonic-based effects. Then we have Hazard Emitters for a heal over time and slight damage reduction. That's also going to purge hazard effects like the Borg Plasma Fire. For our Ensign Universal, we went with a Transfer Shield Strength to restore our shields a bit. Then for our Lieutenant Tactical, we went with a Tactical Team, which is going to redirect our shields automatically and purge things like boarding parties. Since we're shooting for tanking in this instance, we went with the Attack Pattern Delta, which is going to debuff foes that shoot at us, making them take more damage, but it's also going to give us those same amounts of benefits as well. So if it debuffs them for 20, it's going to buff us for 20. Then, for our Lieutenant Commander Universal, we rounded this out and made it a tactical seat so we could take advantage of the various set bonuses. We have our Torpedo Spread 1 to take advantage of our Morphogenic Torpedo. We have our Scatter Volley, which is going to let us cheese the critical severity, as well as let our turrets throw some AoE damage around. And then finally, we have our Fire at Will 3, which is going to let us smack anything within range with a beam. Then, for our total cost for the ship, it was actually pretty cheap this week. We had about a little over 1.1 million EC invested, which was to purchase the conductive RCS, as well as the trait if you're Fed side. Then, if you're not Fed side, we can easily help you make adjustments to that. For our total dilithium investment, assuming that you've had enough time to get to Tier 6 by this point, you're looking at about 30,000 dilithium, or roughly 4 days of build time, assuming you only have one tune refining dilithium per day. So, comments, thoughts on our ship this evening, gentlemen?
Not really. It looks like it's a solid build. That's about it. I would personally have to see it in action. About it.
Alrighty. Any quick comments from you, Sir Timber?
Nah, I'm good.
Well, you heard it here, folks. So that's our budget build we have for the evening. Now, moving on, we do have a couple of bugs that we seem to have discovered potentially with our testing grounds this evening, where somebody's been playing with the spawner while I've been talking.
Oh.
I can see that.
They've been here the entire time.
I think we know who the guilty party is, but anyways, one of the big ones, we're going to have to do some more testing at the moment. So some of the things that are plaguing the Tribble server at the moment is it appears that the skill tree is still showing as skills invalid. If you attempt to hit the retrain, it will just close the window out, and if it does respec you, then you're going to lose your skill points and you won't be able to reinvest them, putting you at an even greater disadvantage for that particular moment. Then some of the Tier 6 traits are disappearing if you hit Tier 6 on Tribble, for your reputations. Some of your starship traits are disappearing whenever you unlock them. You're not actually being able to benefit from them. So that's some of the things to be aware of, so just kind of be careful whenever you transfer over. We have submitted reports, as Timber said, to Cryptic Spartan. She's looking into that. And in addition to this, we also believe that we might be seeing some difficulty stacking here on Tribble. I will let Timber evaluate very slightly on this, since he can explain it a bit better than I can as far as the technicalities.
Well, I was actually the one to discover it before we even started the show. That's what we were actually doing when we first started the stream. You saw me in combat. I was actually testing this. So the implication is you can set your mission difficulty. When you're going into your journal, you can set your mission difficulty for normal, advanced, or elite. Well, what that's doing is it's setting a base value before you come into the Tribble testing server. So the implication being is, let's say you play on advanced difficulty. That is your normal difficulty. You really don't like elite because you just don't feel that you want that kind of a challenge. You're happy at advanced for all your content. Well, that means when you warp in to the Tribble testing grounds right now, set to advanced, if you play on normal difficulty NPCs inside this testing map, it's set to normal advanced, which means advanced is what's going to spawn. Advanced difficulty. It's a normal advanced. However, if you set it to advanced difficulty for these testing ground NPCs, it actually stacks them where they are tougher than normal advanced. And that's something that Artie and Blade were actually able to see, is they end up being tougher than the average advanced stuff you would see anywhere else in the game. Almost to the point of being stacked to elite difficulty in some cases. And then if you're set to advanced in your journal, but you set to elite difficulty in here, it's basically an elite advanced. So you're going higher than elite difficulty on your NPCs. So the implication being, if you're set to elite difficulty, like what me and Blade typically do over here on Tribble, we do Japori Elite for our tests and reviews of starships. You're set to elite there, and then you set to elite on the testing grounds. It's basically an elite squared. These enemies become incredibly difficult to fight. And it's honestly why we were seeing some issues in the first video that I released on my channel just a day or two ago, where we were actually doing our round 1 testing. And that's what actually makes most sense for us, is there is a stacking effect. So with the combinations, there's technically 9 different combinations of difficulty. As you can see right now, we're kind of set to normal, but on the team it's set for elite, as you can see as far as the markings for what's on Blade's stream right now, of what he's set for. So if he's set for elite, on normal difficulty for the testing ground, it's going to spawn regular elite enemies. So that's something that they're going to have to work on with this map over time, so you get more accurate testing out of it. Because if you're trying to come in and just do an advanced run against advanced difficulty, but you've got elite settings by accident from your mission journal, you're going to be facing things a lot tougher than what you were planning on. And I really do not think that was intended. I think it's supposed to just be whatever the difficulty is on this map, it's isolated to just this map, and it does not take anything else into account. And it's not doing that. It's having a stacking effect. So as you come over to Tribble and you're wanting to start testing your builds, which to me, even with this problem, now that we know about it, this is still a great testing map now that we know. We can come in set to normal difficulty in the journal, then we actually have better control of what we're facing. It's still great to test out against any enemy. The difficult encounter 2, I know you saw it in the background, of VOD War Juggernaut. The most difficult encounter is the boss ship of that particular race. So if you're doing difficult combat encounter 2, whatever race you have it set for, it's going to throw their most challenging, their toughest ship at you. So for the Vodwar, it's a Juggernaut. For the Borg, it's an enhanced tactical cube. We just tested Romulans, and that was a Scimitar. So, and it's going to be boosted as if you're facing it as an instance boss, and not just a regular tactical cube. It's more of an instance boss that you would face, like the ISA cube kind of deal. It's tougher and stronger than what you would normally face. But that's going to be the biggest thing that they need to work on, is fixing this difficulty scaling, because it's way out of whack, long before it ever hits Holodeck. Because I could see when this down the road hits Holodeck, which is going to be a great addition, people that only play on the live server, you can test your builds there. You might warp in thinking you're facing one difficulty, and you're facing something you are not prepared for whatsoever. And you'll think it's terrible content, or it's broken, or whatever. So that's the biggest thing that we're writing up to send to the devs tonight, just so we can get this fixed over the next couple of weeks.
Indeed. But we're going to continue to test this stuff for you guys. I say we want to see this come to Holodeck, just like you guys do. This is going to be an invaluable tool right now, and for anybody else that's interested in helping out in this case, definitely come over here to Tribble. If you see a bug, let us know, let them know. We'll be sure to pass it along to them and make sure that they get it, because they want to see this become a good tool as well. They have said they would like to at some point possibly port it over to Holodeck and to console, but there's some issues that need to be worked out first. So the sooner we can get these issues worked out, the better. But that's pretty much what we've got for the Bugs Corner this evening. That's some of the major stuff that's going on. But we finally have our resident RP hologram back with us this week. He has something new for our RP Corner. So what have you got for us this week, good sir?
I'm going to stay with the topic and talk about the testing ground here. And it dawned on me that this map could actually be used pretty well for as a roleplay map. The map is almost identical to Starbase 234. There's that, but when it comes to like the enemies that you face, there's set up an entire flotilla that you're gonna have to fight. Just the either if you're role playing as action, as in that whatever you have in game, like whatever's on your ship and all that, is what you use in character, or you have a strong enough ship to use for such an RP, then this is a good location to try to do those RPs. Testing ground is very difficult if you don't have a good enough build. So if you're not geared out properly, it's going to be very difficult to really roleplay in, as the enemy will not pause to let you roll some dice to see if they hit you or not. Along with that, I feel like you can actually get some pretty interesting screenshots, and I will use this as an example. If I spawn this enemy and change the antagonist, you will see what I'm talking about. As some people have mentioned, a few of us in particular, like myself and Timber, have mentioned that the Iconian War arc has not been really... It was a good war, don't get me wrong, but there are some battles that felt like that it needed to be bigger. So, from what I've seen in this so far, I can tell you this feels like I'm in the Iconian War, not what we faced so far in the campaign. Seeing that just warp in, that gives you that eerie feeling of you're screwed. You got Iconians right there on your behind, ready to get you. But in roleplay, you can have that effect as just the visuals, the feeling behind what you're trying to write out in the scene. But as for actually fighting that out of character, hello, fleet fight, I wouldn't recommend it at all. For icy, totally roll your dice away from them from 10k plus. Yeah, but besides that, no, it's mostly just visuals and whatnot. Until the bugs are fixed and until we have a little bit more variety of what we can actually spawn in and what other stuff we have. There's not much you can really role play on the test map, but it is a good idea for what some role players could go for. That's about it. Yeah, I'm gonna on this fleet before anyone gets any ideas.
So, since you said to throw a dice, like I actually legit threw a natural 20 right then. So what does that get me?
I'm gonna respawn the fleet and you go find out.
To get you that.
There you go.
Oh, not cool, huh? Okay.
Good luck. No, that's yeah.
Hey Timber, no balls to come in here with
Already
me.
did my shenanigans. It's your turn now. If I recall, during the stream, me and Artie fought a scimitar. So we're good.
Yeah, I think I'm fine. I watch from back here this time. Actually, Timber, I think we should hit first a little bit.
Oh,
They're coming a little
Jesus.
closer. They're coming a lot closer.
Evasive maneuvers. Recalling pets.
Jeez. This is gonna suck.
Considering every ship just popped a temporal duplicate on you.
Yeah, no, and this is what I'm talking about for, if you try to do something like this for roleplay, you have a really good tanking build to even type as well as getting shot at. As fighting such a fleet like this, just for testing's sake, difficult on its own. Roleplay, you'll have to more or less guess of what you're trying to roleplay while you're shooting.
God, look at all those temporal duplicates.
Yeah.
This is also
Get
This
away
is
from
also
some
what I
of
was saying.
this.
This is going to be a good testing map. To me, this honestly might end up, if the difficulty stuff gets changed. For Artie, he's looking at the RP. For me, I'm looking at DPS and survival testing. Because, quite honestly, ISA is boring as hell now.
Well, that sucks.
ISA is boring as hell. Like, we've used the same two things for DPS and for mainly just DPS only testing for how many years now? This has proven to be an infinitely better challenge for survival and damage output. I'm probably going to start using this for my ship reviews and everything once some of the bugs have been run out of it, because this is a lot better of a challenge.
And I'm pretty sure it will not. The testing ground will not be 100% geared towards roleplay, obviously, but it is a good place for, I would think, screenshots, stuff like that. If you want to have your lone ship against a whole fleet of 4 cubes, perfect, right here, done. You don't have to go into ISA or have to into the do the hive
Fun blade.
just to get a picture of. But yeah,
Nope.
this is
Nope.
this is a
Nope.
pretty decent.
Nope.
Yeah.
What's wrong, Blade?
Do you think I'm stupid?
What's
I
wrong
am.
with all those scimitars?
Do you think I'm stupid?
Alright, fine. Fine, go ahead.
Oh, jeez.
And I just want to say, now that everybody sees this spawn, this is the spawn that I have kind of equated to your HSE. That opening group you see in HSE. Right here. You've got it right here. It's difficult encounter 1.
Oh god, get away from me, you
So,
jerk!
yeah, first off, I'm going to move away, because I just want Blade to be able to show it off, but to me, this is, once the difficulty stuff has been fixed, this is your HSE test right here. 6 tactical cubes, 6 regular cubes, a whole lot of spheres and probes are within that group on top of that. You can make it as a solo challenge on certain difficulties, test your individual DPS and survival, or you ramp it up to the max and you make it a 5-man. And this would pretty much be about the same. So that's why I'm saying this is probably going to end up being my testing ground, because when you die here, you don't have to worry about any starship damage. You're not risking impulse damage or anything like that. And you can instantly respawn it, so there's no 30-minute wait for the thing to be up to test it again. It's just, okay, wait for cooldowns, 3 minutes, and you're back in. That's what I like about this, is you can get ISA or HSE, or more difficult than HSE, in this build, and it's not just bored. Do it against the McCool, the Iconians. That's why I like it. Basically, HSE meets Iconians, or HSE meets Voth. That's where it could really, really sing. And to answer your question, J-Dog, no, this is the same amount that would spawn for me when I'm by myself. So whether it's 1 player or 5, you get the same amount when it comes down to what spawns. But I have noticed for some of the encounters, it will do waves, whereas in a team, it will only do 1 massive wave. The one I'm speaking of is Intermediate Combat Encounter 3. When me and Blade tested it, it was 1 massive wave of Borg vessels, and we were done. When I tested it as a solo character about an hour later, it did 3 waves of progressively stronger and stronger Borg ships, and then it was done. So it is kind of coding itself a little different for teams at times than it is solo. But I mean, just looking at this, Blade's having his tough time solo, because he's basically facing that hive space opening group by himself. Well, I think Artie's in there. Nope, Artie's beside him.
I'm just next to you. I'm bugged out.
So that's why I say this, to me, is going to be a lot better than doing a TFO test of your build once every 30 minutes. And that's if you can have your team ready or jump into a pug run every 30 minutes. Here, it can be instantaneous the moment it's done. So that's why I happen to like this. It's going to give us a lot more flexibility to test give us a lot more enemies with a very high difficulty curve, which is a really nice thing. And
sorry.
Blade, let's rock this.
I do hope when some of the bugs and whatnot, they add some of the other variants of different factions. Like you had the Klingons, and you had the Klingons from Discovery, and then you had the Klingons from the 23rd century.
Did you spawn
Nope.
on the
No.
wave?
I wanted to also state this. This is something that's happening on certain difficulties. It looks like normal is where it's happening the most. It will not stop the combat parser / map when you defeat the wave. Like when we defeated that on Advanced and Elite the other night, it gave us the end of the run, and that was it. It looks like on normal difficulty, it just spawns infinitely. So just be wary of that.
Indeed. Anyway. So, I believe that about concludes what we've got for you guys this evening. Unless Artie has anything else.
I showed off what I did, and yeah.
Alrighty then. But anyways, folks, that concludes what we've got for a show for this evening for you guys. I hope you guys have enjoyed it. Us making jackasses of ourselves here on Tribble. I'm sure that's nothing new to you guys. Everything, us blowing stuff up and screaming like little girls trying not to die. But, you know, as far as that stuff goes, like I say, definitely get out here on Tribble. Check this out. You guys won't be disappointed. There's pretty much something for everybody with this new testing map. As far as enemies go, that sort of stuff. Definitely check out some of the blogs that they've had on our new patrols, so you guys could kind of get an idea of what we're in for. There's a lot of interesting stuff that's potentially coming down the pipes pretty soon. So, hopefully, we'll have more information. The moment we get that, we'll bring it to you guys, as always. But, on our way out the door, shout out to our good friends over at the Temporal Armada, a very cool bunch of people. Be sure to check out some of their stuff as well. Shout out to our other good friends over at the Kurtang Pirate Radio. The party is there. And they always got a good selection of music playing, so you never know what you're really going to get. Shout out to our other good friends over at the Strike Group Armada. Very cool bunch of people. Be sure to check them out as well. You guys will not be disappointed. If you guys have any requests for budget builds, feel free to let us know. We do take requests. And just let us know, hey, I want to be a space wizard, or I want to be a high beam damage dealer, or I want to be a tank. Whatever it is, whatever budget level, whether it's a bare bones type of budget, or just a basic type of thing, we will be sure to hook you up on that. And this little sphere is about to die. Just like that. And while Timber's having fun. But anyways, if you feel that your gear and your setup is in order, but it's your piloting that needs a little bit of work, feel free to submit a brief little video clip if you're piloting to us. We'll offer different tips and tricks on how to improve, and perhaps even run a few missions with you to help you nail everything down pat if you need us to as well. If you have any bugs, feel free to let us know. We do pass those directly on to the developers, because and there's Timber running for his life.
I beat it, no problem. I'm good.
Yeah, he did. Just beat it. But in all seriousness and everything, like we say, the devs don't like bugs any more than you or I do. So definitely get on here, test this stuff out. Let's root out all these bugs so we can get this tool over to Holodeck, and also to our folks on console who don't really have a good way to parse their damage. So this is going to be good for everybody once this is in full working order. But if you have any requests for the RP Corner, feel free to let Artie know. He does take requests. Could be something fairly simple. It could be anything such as how he would use a map, or his personal thoughts on certain elements of RP, whatever it is. He just might talk about your topic on air. But for now, folks, this is the Pilot Review Show, reminding you to have your tribbles spayed or neutered. Goodbye, everybody.
See ya.
Yo.